It was an ordinary Monday morning when Gareth Williams' colleagues arrived at work expecting to see their punctual co-worker, but Gareth's desk sat empty. The 31-year-old intelligence officer was known to stick to his routines. However, on August 23, 2010, the police went to Gareth's apartment in London to check on him. When they arrived, they made a horrifying discovery. His body was found inside a duffel bag that had been fastened with a zipper. Authorities ruled the shocking death an accident. Nevertheless, there were tales going around about how a spy for MI6 could wind up dead inside a suitcase. Some think Gareth's secret life as a spy finally got the best of him. Others wonder if he was murdered over secret information from his work. Even after more than 10 years, the family and friends of Gareth are still left to wonder what happened to him and why he died so suddenly. Was Gareth the one who ended his own life, or was he killed by unnamed assailants? If murder, who was responsible and why? Gary Williams was born in Valley, Anglesey, Wales on September 26, 1978, into a close-knit family with his parents, Ian and Ellen Williams, and his sister, Kerry. Because of his deep roots in Wales, Gareth learned Welsh as a child, which allowed him to fully immerse himself in Welsh culture and language. Since he was a young child, Gareth has always had a strong aptitude for numbers, which has established him as a mathematical marvel. It was because of his extraordinary abilities that he was able to enter secondary school at the amazing age of 10, which is significantly younger than the typical age range of 11 to 15 years. At the age of 13, Gareth had already proven his scholastic excellence by routinely earning first-class marks in computer science and mathematics. Because his teachers were aware of the need to fostering his developing talent and avoiding intellectual stagnation, they decided to pursue an unusual learning path. They offered an excellent opportunity for studying at Bangor University and obtaining a great education, as well as helping him to continue developing. At 17, he was conferred a degree in mathematics with first-class honours, which adequately reflected his ability and devotion to study. At the age of 18, Gareth headed to Manchester University to start studying for his PhD across the border in England. In his further education, Gareth discovers tranquility and happiness, something that he did not have in his earlier years of frantic energy online gaming and recreation, which at the end of the day brought him to write a dissertation on the topic of computer games. Gareth Williams, who according to friends is particularly skilled in cryptography, attracted extraordinary interest from Government Communication Headquarters, GCHQ, in 2001, which marked a significant shift in his career. It was this opportunity that made Gareth take the important decision of leaving his doctorate and joining the Government Communications Headquarters, GCHQ. While not studying or at work, Gareth also developed a special interest in cycling. One could find him often cycling to his office, besides participating in road races and even time trials. He was therefore a hazardous gentleman, born with a stylistic eye and a taste nearly equal to that of the greatest glutton and shopping lover in the universe. Those who knew Gareth best, whether in his professional or personal riding circles, remembered him for being quiet and contemplative. While he was very polite, Gareth kept his private life under wraps. Even though he was smart and a good student, Gareth was naive and lacked worldly wisdom. By 2010, Gareth had worked for GCHQ for almost 10 years and was in the middle of a 3-year secondment to MI6, which is the UK's Foreign Intelligence Service. His job was more than just a job. It was a calling that kept him in the dark, especially because of how important the tasks he was given were. Subsequently, it was reported that the National Security Agency, NSA, in the United States, had also utilized Gareth's knowledge with a particular emphasis on issues that were related to Russia. In the days before his horrific death, just around the corner, Gareth Williams was bemoaning office politics and pining for GCHQ in Cheltenham. He wished to get back to the pastoral environs because the eventful hustle and bustle of London was taking a toll on him. However, Gareth had stopped attending office at all before this move could at all be thought to have materialized. Relatives and colleagues grew concerned by their inability to contact him, despite repeated attempts to do so. When the police ultimately had to conduct a welfare check at Gareth's London residence, which was obviously cited according to all MI6 MI6 standards, the situation reached a critical point. What awaited them on the date of August 23, 2010 was something so strange that it defied explanation and will forever be etched in their memories. His body they found lifeless, in a scene so ghastly that they left the house without collecting the evidence. But what was most macabre was the red duffel bag that Gareth's body was in. It was padlocked from the outside, which provided the scene with a chilling air of purpose. The bag did let out a kind of red liquid, and Gareth's body was laid out in such a way that it did appear to have been cut up. The police investigation into Gareth Williams' death quickly turned into one of the strangest cases they had ever seen. Investigators thoroughly searched Gareth's flat for forensic evidence, from DNA to fingerprints, to help them grasp this tragedy. However, as the investigation progressed, information that had been kept secret within Gareth's private sanctuary began to make its way into the public sphere. Leaks from the media made this possible. Among the belongings brought back from his apartment were the high-value women's clothes and wigs, thereby speculating on his personal life, such as the likelihood that he was a homosexual transvestite. By examining Gareth's computer history, which took him to online sites that actually sold homosexual pornography, this analysis had to be assigned an even more sophisticated layer of interpretation. The investigation became sensational as far as the most intimate preferences of Gareth, because that is where the media went as far as possible in revealing. To compound it all, some conspiracy theories posit that Gareth's death at an untimely age was the outcome of a sexual encounter gone wrong after his prodigious personal life confessions. Of course, remarks made by a previous landlord that surfaced 3 years after Gareth's passing added to this. She talked about a time when Gareth was found screaming for help while being tied to his bed in what seemed like an experiment and was sexual in nature. Although there were concerns about Mr. Williams's private life after his passing, the appearance of his clean home led to some conclusions. He also proceeded to arrange his things, which seemed deliberate and did not look like a fight broke out. This gave the impression that the scenario was not a personal misadventure. Even more suspicious, DNA evidence from 2 different people was found on the duffel bag, in addition to Gareth's fingerprints not being found on the padlock or around the bath tube, thus ruling out any accidental death related to his personal interests. There was a lot more going on than was first thought. The apartment was spotless, personal items were placed in a smart way, and there was no physical proof that Gareth used to close the bag. Even though there were no indications of forced entrance or a struggle, the coroner was leaning towards the idea that a third party was involved, a theory that the police did not entirely support. Though skeptical, they believed Gareth might have secured himself in the bag alone. Investigator Peter Folden began an intensive series of staged reconstructions to clarify the circulating claims. He planned to try to put himself in the same bag as Gareth in an effort to recreate the situation. Even though Folden tried 300 times with determination, he couldn't lock the bag from inside with him inside it. In the absence of any forensic evidence such as fingerprints, footprints, or DNA on the scene, with each passing day, the suicide theory of Gareth Williams was becoming far less tenable. There were new discoveries speaking of Gareth's existence outside his secret job. Other friends have said he studied at a London arts and design college, which may help to explain some of the women's clothing found in his flat. Other sources close to the Secret Service claimed his work might have involved the use of disguises, perhaps on a mission during which he was intended to pass himself off as a woman or a drag queen. They added that this was being treated as a possibility. After carefully reviewing the evidence, investigator Peter Falding firmly rejected the possibility of suicide or accidental death. Falding agreed with Gareth's mourning family that he was murdered, which seemed to contradict a smear effort. The campaign left Gareth's family perplexed, as they couldn't understand why the police weren't investigating possible foul play, even though all signs pointed in that direction. To say that Gareth Williams was anything but ordinary would be an understatement. His extraordinary abilities as a codebreaker put him at the center of intelligence operations that were designed to foil terrorist and espionage enterprises. Because his line of work was inherently dangerous, coming into contact with the wrong people or things could be fatal. In 2006, Vladimir Putin authorized a new law in Russia, hinting at geopolitical tensions that may have had catastrophic consequences for Gareth's career. Russia passed a law that lets people outside of Russia take illegal actions against people they consider extremists or terrorists. This creates a threat, especially for agents like Gareth Williams, whose work involves national security issues. The circumstances surrounding his death were becoming more and more strange, and he was not the only one affected. Over the course of a decade, the UK saw the unexplained deaths of 14 people associated associated with Russia, including former spies, in circumstances that left many wondering what happened. The already complicated and perilous existence of Gareth was further complicated when it was discovered that he had worked with MI6 to assist the NSA in tracking the financial manipulations of Russian crime syndicates. The strange state of his flat, especially the high heat despite it being summer, suggested a purposeful attempt to expedite his body's decomposition to hide his death time and maybe destroy forensic evidence. Yet another piece of the puzzle that troubled both detectives and Gareth's family was how the front door could be closed from outside. This activity, however, not only suggested the involvement of someone after the death of Gareth, but also stirred up the suspicion that had risen with the Williams family and, more than ever, the deficiencies appearing in the investigation process concerning circumstances leading to the demise of Gareth. Gareth's secret work within MI6 seemed to be the source of his departure and length of time for alarm regarding where he was, all of which raised major red flags that suggested significant breaches of welfare and surveillance procedures typically used by a person of his standing. At the coroner's inquest in March 2012, the family's legal representation argued that either Gareth may have met his end in the company of others, or that his abode had been entered after his death, marking a suggestion of deep mysteries in the case. It was important to acknowledge the forensic scientist's error in some of the DNA evidence from Gareth Williams' apartment, which made the tragedy for his family and the search for the truth even more tragic. While this accident was dismissed as allegations pointing towards suicide or autoerotic acts, it accentuated the difficulty and complications in identifying what actually caused his death. In an about turn that could have been written into a Cold War script, the case took a dramatic twist when former KGB defector Boris Karpyshkov in 2015 popped up with vital information. While then residing in the United Kingdom, Karpyshkov claimed that one of his Russian sources had stated that the Russian Foreign Intelligence Service had decided to kill and subsequently murdered Gareth. That view might be colored by a defector's own goals and prejudices, but Karpyshkov, more plausibly for some, had only fed long-standing speculation that Gareth had become a marked man following his unmasking of a Russian mole within GCHQ, whose cover the analyst should have worked to protect at all costs. Karpyshkov said that the nature of the crime scene and the absence of any forensic clues were commensurate with an untraceable poison that had been used to kill Gareth. This idea was very much welcomed by Gareth's family and his supporters, who have always believed that he must have been killed. Up until now, the determiners of Gareth's fate are hidden in an enigma that cloaks the responsible and the motives, and it is utterly mind-blowing to think that more than 10 years have passed since the fatal end of Gareth Williams, and this case has remained a riddle until today. Gareth was full of duty to his country, too soon for realization of all his potential as a youngster, who has provided us with a very bright future. However, friends and family believe that one day answers will come to light, and Gareth will receive the justice he deserves. Gareth Williams may be gone, but his story demands to be heard. This wasn't just about one man's disappearance. It was a window into a world of hidden agendas, classified information, and unanswered questions that continue to plague us all. Craving for more truth? Dive deeper with Secret Sleuths. Share this mystery and join the hunt. Together, we'll illuminate the darkness.